I was taking a look at my bank account last week online, and I was noticing all of these charges, and I had this moment. I thought, how did my mom feed a whole family in the 1980s on one income and still have money for all of the hairspray? And yet somehow our families made it work. Honestly, they made it work better than most of us are doing right now. So I started digging into the actual money habits from the 1980s. The ones that helped regular families stretch every single dollar. And let me tell you, some of them, they need to make a serious comeback, like right now. And here's the part that surprised me. The 1980s weren't exactly easy. They were not one, but two major recessions, one in 1980 and again in 1981-82. Inflation was out of control. Mortgage rates hit almost 20%. Unemployment was sky high. Families weren't thriving because times weren't easy. They were surviving because of how they handled hard times. They weren't richer. They were just resourceful. So what changed? Because back then there were no cashback apps. Nobody was uploading the receipts for points. There wasn't a personal finance YouTube channel telling you how to use the cash envelope system. And yet our parents made it work. In fact, they made it work better. So today we're going back to the 1980s. I'm digging into the old school money habits that actually worked. Not because people were smarter or richer, but because life was different. And some of those habits, they're exactly what we need in 2025, especially if we want to get ahead without losing our minds. And don't worry, this isn't going to be another cut your lattes lecture. We're talking real life, big hair, cassette tape era common sense that saved serious money. Waiting to buy things was normal, and that was a good thing. Let's start with one of my favorites, waiting. Remember when waiting for a big sale was just what you did? If you wanted a microwave or a new coat, you waited until the next department store sale, maybe Labor Day or even after Christmas. And if you missed it, you waited again. No Prime Day. No limited time offer flashing on your screen every 5 minutes. And then there was layaway. Raise your hand if you ever had something on layaway at Kmart or Sears. You'd pick it out, put down $5 or $10 and pay it off week by week. It wasn't fast. And when you finally brought that item home, it meant something. And here's the thing. When you're forced to wait, a lot of those impulses fade away. You realize you didn't need that sweater. You forgot about that blender. Your budget survived. Fast forward to now, and we're one-clicking everything at midnight in our pajamas because dopamine plus same-day shipping equals financial disaster. So maybe it's not just about what we're buying. It's about how fast we're buying it. The pause between want and buy, we need that back. One income worked because life was smaller. My mom remarried in 1979. In 1983, we moved back to her childhood hometown where she became a stay-at-home mom. I was 7 in 1980 and 16 in 1989. So a lot of changes happened in that decade for me. I grew up in the 80s. Here's the part that always makes people pause. In the 1980s, a single income could support a whole family. And no, it wasn't because salaries were huge, prices were magically lower. It's because people lived on less. There was one car, one TV, one bathroom, and if your brother took too long getting ready in the morning, you were kind of out of luck. Vacations weren't cruises or resorts. They were car trips to grandma's house or a long weekend at the lake camping. And back to school shopping, it happened once. You got 3 new outfits and 1 pair of sneakers. Done. A birthday party was cake, ice cream, some streamers from the discount store, and a bunch of kids playing in the backyard. No Pinterest boards, no $400 bounce house rentals, and yet we were happy. Now we're told to upgrade constantly. We're sold a lifestyle, not really a life. But all of that extra in the subscriptions, the impulse buys, the fast food, the digital clutter, that's what's making everything feel unaffordable. Budgeting was tangible, like literally on paper. There was no budgeting app. There were no spreadsheets. You didn't need a color-coded system with stickers and highlighters. You just had a notebook. My mom used to sit on the kitchen table on Sunday nights with her checkbook, a calculator, and a pile of bills. She'd add everything up by hand. Groceries, gas, electric, mortgage. If the math didn't work out, something got adjusted. You felt every penny when you had to subtract it yourself. Today, budgeting apps are sleek and automatic, which sounds helpful, but it also creates distance. You don't see your money move. You don't feel it leaving. You just swipe and hope it doesn't bounce. Bringing back paper, even just for a month, can make a huge difference in how connected you feel to your money. And when you feel connected, you spend more mindfully. The check register, old school accountability. Let's take that paper one step further. Before debit cards, we had check registers. You wrote down everything. If you went to the ATM and pulled $20, you wrote it down. If you wrote a check at the grocery store, it went in the register. You balanced it weekly. And if the math was off, you stayed up late figuring it out. It sounds tedious, and it was, but you know what it did? It made you pay attention. It gave you a relationship with your money. You knew what was in your account before you swiped. We've lost that. We swipe blindly now. Autopay pulls from accounts before we even notice. And overdraft fees? Don't even get me started. Bringing back some form of register, even a digital one, builds that awareness again. And that awareness is power. Meals were basic and they worked. Let's talk dinner. You know what we had growing up? Ground beef, potatoes, canned green beans, spaghetti, tuna noodle casserole. The kind with the crunchy stuff on top. There weren't 3 options for picky eaters. No DoorDash. No endless scrolling to decide what to make. You opened the fridge, used what you had, and made it work. Today, we waste so much food. Fridge doors full of sauces, 3 half-used bags of spinach, and yet nothing to eat. Back then, food was fuel. It was love. It didn't need to be gourmet. So maybe it's not about finding new recipes. Maybe it's about remembering that food doesn't have to be fancy to be nourishing and cheap. Brown bagging was a movement. Eating lunch out in the 80s, that was a treat. Most people, even office workers, brought a lunch bag. Peanut butter sandwich, apple, thermos of coffee. It wasn't weird. It wasn't sad. It was normal. Today, eating out is often the default. Even if we don't plan on it, convenience wins. But those $10 to $25 lunches, they add up fast. Going back to brown bagging, even just a few days a week can save you thousands of dollars a year. That's not small change. That's a vacation, or a debt payoff, or groceries covered during a tight month. People fix things instead of replacing them. This one's a biggie. In the 1980s, if something broke, you didn't toss it. You fixed it. If your jeans ripped, you sewed them. If the toaster stopped working, you opened it up and fiddled with the wires while it was unplugged. If the vacuum made a weird sound, you didn't Google new models. You called your uncle who kinda knew motors. It was normal to fix things. Expected. Now, everything's disposable. A $20 fix becomes a $200 replacement. And we don't even think about it. We just hit add to cart. Repair used to be an everyday skill. Maybe it's time we brought that mindset back, even if it's just learning to patch a hole or sew a button. Generic groceries were the default. Let's talk about that beautiful, no-nonsense white label that just said peas. No cartoon character, no fancy branding, just 40 cents cheaper, and it got the job done. In the 80s, generics were trendy. They were just practical. You could stretch a grocery budget by 30 to 50% by shopping house brands. Guess what? You still can. Store brand items today are often made in the same facilities as name brands. They just have a less marketing slapped on them. Swapping even a few pantry staples can cut your grocery bill without sacrificing quality. Coupon clubs were a community. Remember when Sunday coupons were gold? People would clip them, organize them, and even trade with friends. There were literal coupon clubs, groups of women who got together to swap, share tips, and plan grocery runs like military ops. Now, we've got digital coupons, referral codes, and cashback sites. But the spirit's the same, helping each other save money. Start a group chat with friends. Text when Aldi has a deal. Share a BOGO. It's not old-fashioned, it's smart community. Mail-in rebates, the original side hustle. If you were a serious 1980s saver, you probably had a little folder for rebate forms. Cereal boxes, shampoo, electronics. They all came with those little forms. You'd mail in your UPC and your receipt, and weeks later, you get a $5 check. It felt like free money. Now today we've got Rakuten, Ibotta, Fetch. Same idea, just faster. But the patience and follow through, still golden. Utility bills were paid in person with cash. You walked into the electric company office with cash. No auto pay, no bouncing a check because you forgot the gas bill was due. It was inconvenient, sure, but it made you feel the bill. It was real. Now autopay hides it until one day you look at your bank account and realize everything came out at once and you're overdrafted again. Even if you pay online, reviewing bills before you pay brings that intention back. Pair it with your cash envelopes and suddenly you're back in control. Renting instead of charging. Rent-A-Center and similar places let families get what they needed, washers, fridges, couches, without going into credit card debt. Was it the cheapest option? No, but it kept people from drowning in revolving interest. Today we've got smarter versions, Facebook Marketplace, buy nothing groups, neighborhood swaps. Sometimes you don't need to own something forever. You just need it for a season. So you borrow, trade, share. It worked then, it works now. Kids don't need everything. I had 1 or 2 Barbies, a few Matchbox cars, a bike, and birthdays, homemade cake, a wrapped present, and a bunch of cousins running wild in the backyard. We didn't feel deprived, we felt excited. These days, the pressure to keep up is intense. Tablets, trips, themed parties, matching outfits. But at what cost? Maybe our kids don't need more stuff. Maybe they need parents who aren't stressed out and broke. Maybe they just need more time with us. People talked less about money, but understood it more. Back then, there were no influencers, no debt-free screams, no budgeting TikToks, but people got money. You paid your bills first. You bought what you could afford. You fixed what you had. You planned ahead. Simple, not easy, but solid. And that kind of quiet confidence, I think we're craving it again. Are you starting to see it? This isn't just nostalgia. It's not about missing the 1980s for the fashion or the music, even though, yes, some of it was totally tubular. It's about remembering what people did when life was hard, because 1980s families faced double-digit inflation, record unemployment, and sky-high interest rates, and they still found ways to pay the bills, stay out of debt, and raise families with a whole lot less than many of us feel now. They didn't wait for the economy to fix itself. They built their own safety nets. They changed their habits. They made do. And honestly, the mindset might just be what saved us again. The 1980s weren't perfect, but there was wisdom in the way that we lived. And in a world where everything feels expensive and exhausting, maybe the answer isn't in having more. Maybe it's in doing what they did and learning to live with less on purpose. And if this video spoke to you, please share, like, and subscribe, and watch this video next.